On January 22, 1997, at Anyang Prison, one of South Korea's most dangerous inmates suddenly escaped, shaking the entire nation. That man was Shin Chang-won, who escaped through a vent so small it was narrower than a child's shoulders. For the next 2 years, he lived as a fugitive, committing a series of bold thefts targeting the wealthy. The stolen money was shared with the poor, blurring the line between right and wrong. Over time, many began calling him the Korean Robin Hood, seeing him as a symbol of resistance in a society full of inequality and class division. So who was the real Shin Chang-won? And how did he carry out the prison break that shook the entire country? Like and subscribe to join us as we uncover the truth behind this dramatic escape, more thrilling than an action movie. Our main character? Shin Chang-won was born in 1967 in Jimjae, North Jeolla Province, into a poor family with many children. His father was hot-tempered and often used violence to teach his children, while his mother struggled to make a living and was rarely home. In that cold household, Chang-won grew up without truly understanding what love was. At school, things weren't much better. Although education was said to be free, voluntary contributions were mandatory, becoming a heavy burden on his already struggling family. Chang-won was often mocked by classmates for wearing old uniforms and failing to pay fees on time. These quiet wounds built up over the years, silently but persistently, growing into an unnamed loneliness inside him. At age 15, Chang-won stole a watermelon from a family friend's garden to share with neighborhood kids. But what hurt him most wasn't being caught. It was that his own father reported him. Not only that, his father even sent him to a juvenile correctional facility, saying it was to teach him a lesson. That act completely shattered his last bit of faith in family. At the correctional facility, Chang-won received no proper education or guidance to recognize his mistakes. Being separated from his family, losing his chance at education, and enduring a harsh environment slowly pushed him toward rebellion. After leaving the facility, Shin Chang-won was no longer the same boy. He became hardened, cold, and distrustful of everyone. He kept getting into thefts and fights, getting arrested and released in an endless cycle. One day, Shin reunited with old village friends, scammers and thieves. They invited him to Seoul for a big job. In 1989, at 22 years old, he left his hometown carrying a vague dream of money and freedom. In the capital, Shin's group planned to rob a stationery store. The incident took place quickly at night, but amid the chaos, one member killed the store owner. Police quickly got involved. Within days, 4 group members were arrested. Although Shin didn't commit the murder, he was wanted nationwide. 6 months later, Shin Chang-won was arrested. At the trial, although Chang-won didn't commit the murder, he was still prosecuted as an accomplice in a serious criminal case. Shin Chang-won was sentenced to life in prison and began serving his term in a Seoul prison. After 5 years in Seoul, he was transferred to a detention facility in Gangso District, Busan. This was one of South Korea's most secure facilities, specifically designed for extremely dangerous inmates. The prison was located 160 meters underground, surrounded by 4.5-meter high concrete walls and a 24/7 surveillance camera system. Upon arrival, Chang-won was placed in solitary confinement, cell number 26. The room had only a bed, a toilet, and 4 cold white walls. Life there was already harsh, but what shocked him more was how guards used violence to control inmates. Even minor infractions were met with severe punishment. Any sign of rebellion was suppressed from the start. In this brutal environment, the idea of escape began to form in Shin Chang-won's mind. The years behind bars had sharpened his skills in observation and analyzing small details. He silently observed the prison's daily routines, from shift changes and guard footsteps to gaps in the surveillance schedule. Every night, lying on his bed, he mentally mapped out the room and listed every item that could be used: coat hangers, paper, rubber bands, shoe soles, broom, chewing gum. Items once considered useless now became part of a grand plan. One day, while cleaning the toilet, he discovered a small ventilation hole above it, blocked by 2 rusty iron bars, less than 30 centimeters high. After inspecting it carefully, he concluded, if the bars could be cut, he could crawl through the vent and reach the maintenance area near the trash zone, one of the least monitored parts of the prison. From that moment on, Escape was no longer a passing thought, but a life mission. To avoid suspicion, Chang Wan completely changed his behavior. He became polite, hardworking, and strictly followed the rules. In the eyes of the guards, he quickly became a model prisoner. Thanks to his good conduct, he was transferred to the prison's woodworking shop, which used mechanical tools like saws, chisels, and planes. Although he had no training, Chang Wan quickly mastered the techniques, showing diligence and earning the guards' trust. During a lunch break, while no one was watching, he secretly took a small saw blade and hid it inside the rubber sole of his shoe. He had hollowed it out days earlier in preparation. Back in his solitary cell, the escape plan officially began. The vent behind the toilet was only 32 centimeters wide and 28 centimeters high, far too small for Chang Wan's 1.74-meter, 80-kilogram frame. But he didn't let that stop him. Sawing metal in a confined space like a prison cell was extremely risky. Even a small noise could land him in solitary confinement or earn him harsh punishment. But Chang Wan was well prepared. Every evening from 6 to 8 p.m., the prison broadcasted radio shows and movies loud enough to mask the sound of sawing metal. Each night, he sawed for 20 minutes, patiently and cautiously. After each session, he chewed gum, mixed it with paper dust, and stuffed it into the gaps to hide any trace. The camouflage was so well done that no one in the prison noticed anything for 4 months. After more than 4 months of preparation, the 2 bars blocking the air vent were finally cut through. Thanks to a strict diet, Chang Wan had also lost weight, from 80 kilograms to just 65 kilograms. As the prison lights went out, Chang Wan lay still, folding his blanket into the shape of a body to fool the guards. Waiting until silence fell over the prison, he quietly got up, went to the bathroom, removed the pre-cut bars, and squeezed through the narrow air vent. 10 minutes later, he reached the exit, an opening on a 3.4-meter high wall. He jumped. The landing was safe. Though exhausted and drenched in sweat, he wasn't injured. A quick scan confirmed the construction site was deserted, just as he had planned. At the site, he found scaffolding and a rope among the construction materials. He quickly tied the rope into a makeshift ladder, climbed the scaffold, and reached the final barrier, a 4.5-meter high wall standing between him and freedom. From start to finish, the entire escape took less than 90 minutes. After escaping Busan prison, on the night of January 20, 1997, Chang Wan broke into a house 500 meters away, stole old clothes, some cash, and a bicycle. He then rode into central Busan and caught a coach to Seoul. The next morning, during roll call at cell 26, guards only found the cleverly folded blanket. The escape was discovered, but too late. That same day, the media headlined, "Busan Fortress Breached, Dangerous Prisoner Escapes." The whole country was shocked. Public opinion was in turmoil, criticizing the prison security system. Once in Seoul, Chang Wan considered living honestly. He planned to use his carpentry skills learned in prison to find a job and start anew. But that became impossible. A nationwide manhunt was launched. His face and information were everywhere, with a reward of 5 million won for any leads. Chang Wan couldn't use his real name, and no one dared to hire him. To survive, he had no choice but to return to petty theft. One day, while drifting into Cheonan City, he entered a unique cafe. There, staff not only served drinks, but also chatted with customers like companions. There he met Jimin, a petite, gentle girl with shoulder-length hair and a quietly tired look. Their conversation began with a simple act. Seeing Jimin was unwell, Chang Wan quietly left. Minutes later, he returned with cold medicine and a warm drink, silently placing them in front of her. From that moment, a quiet yet steady bond began to form between 2 lonely souls. Not long after, they started dating. Jimin had no idea the warm man beside her was a nationally wanted fugitive. One day, Chang Wan decided to tell her everything about his abusive childhood, time in reform school, and years living on the run with no name or shelter. Jimin was stunned, but instead of leaving, she chose to stay. She brought him to her small apartment and took him in. From that moment on, Chang Wan had, for the first time, a home, someone waiting for him, and a normal life he had never dared to imagine. Soon after, he became close with the neighbors. Everyone liked him for being handy, a great cook, and often throwing rooftop barbecues after fishing trips. In everyone's eyes, Chang Wan was just a warm, simple man who cared about others. But reality wasn't that simple. Despite having a home and a partner, Shin Chang-won couldn't leave his past behind. He kept moving, living a fugitive life, stealing to sustain his new lifestyle. 9 months after his escape, Shin Chang-won unexpectedly reappeared when he stopped by a familiar car wash in Busan. Despite the scorching sun, he wore a long-sleeved shirt and a vest to hide tattoos and identifying marks. His unusually generous tips for each worker made the shop owner suspicious, who then informed a police friend. From there, police traced him through photoshops, frequent locations, and finally to a second-floor apartment he shared with Jimin, a former girlfriend. That night, police set up an ambush in the hallway of his building. As soon as Chang-won stepped in, an officer used a stun gun to restrain him. Though disoriented, Chang-won still managed to escape. In the chaos, he dashed toward the emergency stairs and vanished. After the escape, he secretly contacted Jimin, asking her to leave the city with him. But this time, Jimin refused. She said she wasn't a criminal and couldn't keep living on the run. Jimin asked to break up. Though shocked and heartbroken, Chang-won agreed. After the breakup, Chang-won disappeared for a while. But a few days later, he reached out again. Not to rekindle the relationship, but to ask her to collect his belongings. They arranged to meet at a parking lot in Cheonan City. As Chang-won approached, 2 officers appeared from behind Jimin's car. He froze. His face briefly surprised, then turned cold. One officer drew his gun, but it jammed. Chang-won reacted instantly, knocked both down, jumped into the car and sped off before they could stop him. In the car Chang-won left behind, police found critical evidence. Inside were large amounts of cash, luxury jewelry and watches, plus wigs, sunglasses, and multiple fake IDs. But what intrigued investigators most was a detailed diary, a small notebook recording his entire 2-year escape. From hideouts to theft plans laid out like dominoes, everything was meticulously documented. The diary revealed new details, like how he once escaped police by crawling through sewers and hiding underground for days. The event forced police to launch a large-scale manhunt in Gangnam and Damwon Mountain, but to no avail. After the shocking escape, the bounty on Shin Chang-won kept increasing, from 5 million to 10 million, then to 50 million won, the highest in South Korean history. Hundreds of officers were mobilized. Special units and even the military were ordered to cooperate in the search. Yet each time, Chang-won vanished just in time. His miraculous escapes led the media to question the competence of law enforcement. Officers involved said Chang-won had sharp reflexes, good physical condition, and strong mental stability. They believed his calm mindset helped him avoid panic or mistakes. At one point, Chang-won had to sleep under a bridge and eat rats to survive. Yet he was never found in a weakened or unstable state. During his escape, Shin Chang-won had romantic relationships with several women, mostly cafe workers, vendors, or those in hardship. Surprisingly, many of them knew his true identity. They understood he was a wanted criminal, but still chose to stay silent. When asked why, most gave the same answer. They said Chang-won was kind, gallant, always gentle, and had never hurt anyone. Some even volunteered to help him hide, as if placing their trust in a misunderstood hero rather than a criminal. During more than 2 years on the run, Shin Chang-won committed over 100 thefts, mainly targeting villas in Seoul's affluent areas. The total loss was estimated at nearly 10 billion won. Most of the money was spent lavishly. Luxury watches, motorbikes, foreign liquor, expensive jewelry for his girlfriend. Part of the money was anonymously donated to nursing homes, orphanages, churches, and charities. On one occasion, he visited an orphanage wearing a cap, played with the children, then quietly left behind a stack of cash and disappeared. On social media, Chang-won was compared to a Korean Robin Hood. Many young people saw him as a symbol of resistance, someone who dared to defy an unjust system. July 16, 1999. A plumber was called to a small apartment deep within an old residential area of Seoul. As soon as he entered, he sensed something was off. The air was cold and tense. He didn't even dare raise his voice. The tenant wore a cap low over his face, spoke little, and had a hoarse voice. The apartment was nearly empty, lacking normal living items. Everything made the plumber uneasy. After leaving, he returned to the real estate office to check the tenant's info. Sensing something suspicious, he quietly called the police and said, I think I just met Shin Chang-won. Upon receiving the report, police quickly mobilized to the provided address. At exactly 11:20 p.m., after months of intense pursuit, police raided an apartment in Suncheon. When the door burst open, Shin Chang-won, South Korea's most infamous fugitive, was arrested on the spot. He didn't resist. His face was calm, as if he had known this day would come. In court, the jury sentenced him to life imprisonment, plus 22 years for multiple crimes committed while on the run. In prison, Shin tried to rehabilitate. From someone who only completed elementary school, he earned his high school diploma and studied law and psychology. During his sentence, he wrote an autobiography that gained significant attention. The book recounted his troubled childhood, school trauma, and how he became who he was. In the book, Shin urged society to care more for misguided youth to prevent crime at its roots. In August 2011, he attempted to end his life after learning of his father's death, but was saved with brain damage. In May 2023, Shin attempted another act of desperation. Fortunately, it was discovered in time, and he recovered after 2 days of treatment. Shin Chang-won's life story was later adapted into comics and films. The work sparked public debate on social issues like family abandonment, flaws in education, and prison reform. Shin expressed regret and acknowledged that the law is the final boundary of morality. Anyone who crosses it will eventually pay the price. This video ends here. If you found the story compelling, please like, subscribe, and share to support us. Thank you, and see you in the next video.